And we are live. What's going on Facebook and YouTube Live? It's Coach Rowe and Coach Taralyn Michelle coming at you for another edition of Taralyn Michelle and Billy Wroe Live. Stay tuned. We have a great show for you. And we're live. We back. We're back. We're back. What is going on with you, sis?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It
Beautiful Tuesday. If
is a
it's Tuesday,
beautiful
you
day.
guys know what that means. It's time for the show. The show you've been waiting for since last week, since last Wednesday, since last The Grind Define on Friday. It's Taryn, Michelle, and Billy Rowe Live. We in here. How's everybody doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Wait, did you just
So,
did you just hear that thunder rumbling
oh, is
behind
that
me?
what that was?
That's what that was. That's that's
Oh,
that's the Lord. So just know that
okay.
that's what's going on back there. I was like, okay.
I thought you was adding sound effects like we live. Boom, bring it.
Not hardly.
Uh,
Not hardly. Yes.
so today we have a show topic as always. Today's show topic is influences.
Mm.
As always, I like to talk about what we mean by our show topics. And sometimes you and I align on what we mean. Other times we're on two different spectrums or two different perspectives of what the topic means to us. So I would like to start with you today, Coach T, on what does the topic of influences mean to you?
When I thought of influences, I thought the pull to or away based on external factors. That's what I thought. And I think in my experience with many of the people that I come across is typically the pull away first in a negative way. And
Mm,
then later on with maturity, the pull to, but in a positive way.
mm, dang, that just took me a whole other direction.
I thought you might like that. I thought you might.
I do like
And
that
you know,
because I can relate.
and you and I, we had we're always having conversations, but we had a conversation way, way, way back when, which is what brought that perspective of this to mind. So I'm curious to see what you thinking about this.
Mm. So for me, when I started thinking about influences, I started to think about how we determine not only the influences in our life, but what influence really is to us. Like, what is the special sauce that allows somebody or something to be influential in our lives?
Yeah.
And so when you say the pull to or the pull away or the pull to in maturity, I think about that special sauce being very convoluted in
Mm.
early in our lives. It's very convoluted. And I mean, we could use today's society, social media, and influencers in social media that have influence because they have followers and their followers are they feel as if they're connected to them, but may not really have a true understanding of who they're following and who is influencing them. And then I think about where we are at this age in our lives. We're out of that lost decade, the 20s. And I love when you say that. But we're out of that lost decades of our 20s. And so we have to be very cognizant of what we are allowing to influence us and in what direction it is allowed to pull us in. I was actually having a conversation earlier, either yesterday or today, I can't remember, but we were talking about how the music we listen to and the importance of the music that we listen to,
Yeah.
you how you can't pour in. Oh, this was a conversation today. You can't pour in negative, negative, negative influence and expect positive outcomes. I
Yep.
said it's almost like having a water bottle. I don't have one nearby, but like having an empty water bottle that maybe once had water in it, But if I pour milk into that water bottle, that milk doesn't become water. That milk is milk.
Yep.
And so, in the same aspect of influence, if I pour negative into my empty vessel, it doesn't become positive because it's within the vessel of myself. It is still negative and has to be resolved as such, unfortunately. So, I love
Superficial,
where you're going.
superficial versus substantive.
Mm,
You know,
yes.
because I think that on the lost decade spectrum, if we're there, that's more of a superficial. Going back to what you were saying about the influencers, right? You know, people may look to what they share, and because they connect with what they share, think they know who they're following, and therefore can trust whatever this person says. When at the end of the day, those of us who are more substantive know that that's a business. They show you what they want you to see, and they present it in such a way where if you patronize whoever they're sharing or do whatever, they benefit from that. And that's not to say that all influences are coming from that perspective, but at the end
Right.
of the day, depending on where you are, that's going to determine a lot of what you see and
Hmm.
why certain things look a certain way to you. As opposed, you can have an influencer and you can have somebody mature looking at them and someone that hasn't reached that level of maturity yet, and they see two completely and totally different things. One sees deeper than just what this person is showing and maybe what they're promoting, and the other one sees something completely and totally different than the mature vessel. They may see that as exactly what it is, what's being presented. That may be what they see. So, yeah, I think it's one of those types of things where it's evolutionary, just
Hmm.
as we are, and I think that um, the vantage point from which we see things has a whole lot to do with how we see ourselves. I believe
Right.
for those
Well,
who are watching, if you want to jump in this conversation, by all means, you don't have to sit in the chat, you don't have to just look on your camera. You could join us right here on stage with your question or your comment. Just follow the link that's there in the chat, and we'd be more than happy to have you.
yes. So that actually led me to a question that I want to ask you.
Mhm.
Um, how much does influence, or how much do you feel influence normalizes certain behaviors, almost in which we may think that something would not resonate, or we would, yeah, it wouldn't resonate with us. However, the influences that we have around us might allow that to resonate with us more strongly.
Oh, I think that plays a huge, it plays a lot into a lot of things that are going on. First, God, there's so many different things I could say about this. Wow. Okay, so first, I'll start off by saying that the value system that folks have for wealthy people, people of means, because that's
Hmm.
of such a huge importance in our culture. And I'll say American culture, because I think American culture pushes that more than any other culture. We define success in terms of how much money you have, how much status you have, and the things that you have. Asians,
Right.
they define their success in terms of intelligence, and they invest in their people in a completely and totally different way, because they look at success and the end game of success in a completely and totally different way than we do. Now, that's not to say that they don't value things too, but I don't think in the same way in which we push it. So to what you were asking, I think that influence is huge, because since this country as a whole values wealth and things, then you can have wealthy people that the masses will co-sign on their beliefs simply because they're living a lifestyle that they aspire to one day. It could be pedophilia, it could be
Mm,
racism. It doesn't matter. I mean, if we just think about it, people, and I'm gonna go there, people, the people who love them some Donald Trump and think, well, Trump was allegedly over there with, well, what's his name? Weinstein and all of them, allegedly purchasing children in other countries to have sex with. When this type of thing got out, or even just the appearance of impropriety got out in terms of children, that didn't deter people, because he has Trump Tower. He has gold
mhm.
floors in his house. He has this, he has that. That can be said about so many different people, celebrities or people of means. some of the things that they believe in that would be morally questionable, or things that have been brought up that they've been
Right.
associated with that would be morally questionable, people tend to overlook because this person has a lifestyle that many people aspire to have one day. So I think
Mm.
that when it comes to that type of thing, pretty much anything can be sold to the masses as long as the person selling it has something that the average person aspires to want to have or to be one day. And I think that that's unfortunate. I think it's an unfortunate truth, but still there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you bring up because that can be said about a lot of different aspects of life that it almost is like it reminds me of the movies because I didn't grow up in an area like this, but the movies where you see the drug dealer who's selling drugs to the community but then gives away turkeys on Thanksgiving.
Turkeys. Yeah. Yeah.
How many people have you poisoned? But then that just becomes not an act of compassion, it just becomes a part of the process.
Right.
And people do see the monetary lifestyle that somebody lives and almost completely discard the character and integrity that a lifestyle should have.
Yeah.
So I agree with that 100%. And I actually think about the type of person that I have been growing up and the types of things that I have experienced. And I can honestly say it would have been very easy for me to live a negative lifestyle. It would have been really easy. I mean, I had parents who cared about me, but it still would have been pretty easy to live a negative lifestyle. And to consciously choose intentionally in the space that I was in to choose that outside influence mattered less than my own internal influence allowed me to make choices and decisions that um, are benefiting me now later on in life. Um,
Absolutely.
that um, that makes me wonder like what is it about not me because I don't think I am special. I don't think I'm an anomaly in the world. I think
True.
that there's plenty of people who can lean on their own influence. But how would you recommend people begin to engage with that aspect of being their own influencer or their own influence?
I think that the beginning of that would be understanding that everything around you that you see is that's powerful, that you see that is impressive, that you see that is whatever word you would put to that. Many of them escape my mind right now, but whatever you see outside of yourself that you would aspire to, that's great. Understand that we all contain that for ourselves. We all contain that. And I know that for myself personally, before I got to the space that I'm in now internally, um, when I saw things that I admired or that I said, wow, that's like super dope, I had moments where I would say, man, I wish I had something dope like that. That comes from that disconnect, comes from a space of, or for me, not spending enough time with myself to understand that, yeah, we all have something dope like that. But it takes time, it takes patience, it takes grace, giving ourselves some grace, personal forgiveness to take that time to find out what is dope about us. And when you figure out something that you say, okay, that's kind of cool, maybe it's not to the level of dope just yet to me, that's kind of cool. Understand that there's a process to develop that thing. There's
Okay.
a process to develop it. So taking the time to go inward to discover, but then playing around in it unapologetically, understand that it's going to have some rough edges, but there's nothing that we see outside of us that is positive and powerful that doesn't exist within us. And I think that a lot of people spend their life thinking that what they see externally is something that's specific only to whatever person they're looking at it with. Now, granted, everybody has their unique and individual thing. With all of the people who do their thing on the court, there's only ever going to be one MJ, Michael Jordan. Only
Right.
one. Now, that's not to say that we know about some sick players who have come since, and there will be others. but there's always only going to be one MJ. There's always only going to be one Kobe, even though they both play ball. They have a uniqueness about them that is specific to them. And when you listen to the stories of those athletes or any other people outside of athletes, all of us know of somebody who's pretty phenomenal that maybe the rest of the world will never know, but they're pretty phenomenal. All of these people take time to see a twinkle of something special within them and then invest the time and the discipline focusing on harnessing that thing and honing it and developing it. And then this is when we get to the space of influences that I mentioned earlier. When you get more mature, when you're working on your thing in your immature years, then now when you go to make those connections, those influences, now you're looking for people who you can connect to that are going to help you to see yourself differently, to continue to refine and define and hone that thing. You're no longer looking for somebody to attach to and try to become what they are. You're already cool with who you are. You're just trying to develop who you are. And so now you want to find like-minded sources to help you to continue to do that and expand upon that in ways that you probably didn't know before then. So yeah, it's kind of I see that.
No, I like that. The difference between uh, mimicry and development.
Yep.
Like you, you can act. I can act like I play basketball like Michael Jordan. I don't.
They've been like
But
you. Did you see that video the other day? I ain't never seen. You remember that video? I know this is of the one I see. They had on the fake Jordans. He said, "Woo! Oh, the shoes." Michael Jordan never did that move.
right.
That be you.
that's that's how it is though. Is it gets to this place where you can spend your time chasing after an external influence, or you can seek to develop your own greatness. Um,
Hmm.
and that is something that I wholeheartedly believe, and not just believe. I can tell you from a very early age that's something that I wholeheartedly lived.
Yeah.
I didn't live it in every area of life. I wasn't perfect at living it, um, but I have learned to embrace who I am more, which allows me honestly to be in an authentic identity where people can tell me who they think I am. People can make assumptions and share with other people who they think I am. But at the end of the day, I know who I am. And so when I am in developmental mode, or I'm developing or working on myself or trying to push myself into the next level, I understand the mental aptitude that I go into, because I understand that that mental aptitude is within me. It's not external. It's not like, well, and it almost reminds me of like being a kid and wanting my dad to see how fast I could run. And so you take off running, but you're not running as fast as you can run because you're so busy trying to look back to see if he's
Watching.
looking. Are you watching? Are you watching?
Yeah.
Now you think he's watching, so you're gonna run back the other way, and you think about that going back and forth, just in running back and forth, waiting for the person externally to watch you and to acknowledge you. At some point, when they do watch you, you're going to be fatigued because you've been running back and forth, and distracted in your running back and forth. And now your heart rate's up, you're sweating, you want a glass of Kool-Aid, or a hot, burn your lips drink off the water hose.
Oh God.
But you want that. And unfortunately, now that they're paying attention, now that you have their attention, you're not even operating at 100%. So I can really get behind that difference between that development and mimicry, because I've had to live that for a pretty significant portion of my life. Now,
That now wait, that brings to mind because when you said that development, that makes me think about your book, right? So I think that within this conversation, um, I'm wondering when it comes to development, okay, you're at this space of you running, but you're looking back. You're all distracted. And then now you understand that, okay, I don't want the distraction. I want to find what's my space of focus so that if I have connected to a glimmer of what that thing is, I can feed it and I can invest in it. Or maybe I haven't identified what that thing is. I want to. What would be, coach, some strategies? Let's say if you had your top two things that a person could do to cut themselves from being distracted. They acknowledge that they're distracted, and I want to try to define a way forward. What would be some strategies that you could give them to try and do that?
So my first cheat code is this, and I sometimes use this with myself. Um, Scientifically, when scientists are observing the behavior of someone, there is what they call observed behavior.
Mm-hmm.
When the subject knows that they're being observed, they
Mm-hmm.
will act differently than when they don't know they're being observed. So if you're going to be distracted because you're wondering who's watching, just simply make the assumption that everybody's watching
Come on now.
and just go. Like, make the assumption that everybody's watching, and at the worst case scenario, nobody's watching and you're doing an amazing job because you're operating as if you are being observed. And that observed behavior for us, honestly, though it may not always be an authentic behavior, over time it can become a practiced authentic behavior in which we implement it into the identity of who we are. So that is the first thing that I do is take advantage of, if you truly are seeking attention, if you truly are um, looking for who's watching, then just make the assumption that somebody's watching and do everything that you need to do. Um, the other side of that, that's the shortcut. That's what I would consider the least amount of growth path because it's going to take longer to grow. However, um, the other side of that would be stop caring about who's watching
Come on.
and do what you intend to do. Stop caring how it's going to be perceived, received, judged, scrutinized, criticized. Stop worrying about that because regardless if you worry about it, regardless if you give energy, effort, and attention to it, it is going to be that the moment somebody has the opportunity to observe it. So there's two sides of that. Some people need that motivation to, I need somebody to be watching. I think about when I get on the dance floor. I love to dance. I get on the dance floor, I'm dancing. I don't care if the song is in English, Spanish, German.
I
I,
I don't.
I'll
I can't stand to hear about you dancing because if I'm not gonna see you with both your hands in your pocket down on that floor, I don't want. I don't want to hear it. If that's not what I'm seeing, I don't want to hear it. I want to see a brother be like, swoop, swoop, bring it out.
bring it all the way down. But that's what I've learned is that um, I love to dance, and my love for dancing supersedes any attention, criticism that I can get. However, what's always interesting to me is I'll get on the dance floor, and it doesn't matter if nobody's on the dance floor. I'll get on the dance floor because I like to dance. I'll be the only one on the dance floor dancing, and then all of a sudden, there's this gravity that happens that I create where people gravitate to the fun that I'm having because I truly, genuinely have fun when I dance. Like I got a towel because I got to wipe my head. I'm sweating. I'm hot, but I'm enjoying life.
Yeah.
And so when I'm in that dancing environment, or when I'm playing dancing music, or even just joking around singing to my wife, when I'm in those moments of just bliss, I have found that I am so unconcerned with what people think about me. I'm so unconcerned with the embarrassment that, oh, what if I didn't do that dance move right? What if I slip and fall? What if I'm off beat? Look, I don't care about any of that. I'll find the beat eventually if I'm off beat right now. And that is where I feel like when it comes to being influencers, not influence, but influencers, where we begin to shine, not because we're trying to shine, but it's because naturally we become a beacon. Almost what Tyrone says here, that authentic energy becomes that beacon of light, and people just gravitate to it. My wife and I went out to play pool this past weekend, and while we were out playing pool, we came across this couple, and these people were just super nice, super just charismatic, probably slightly intoxicated, but they they
Oh,
were
it's
just
the
like,
charisma.
right, but they were just like cool people all around, and in interacting with them, it was just like a gratitude that was there. My wife was like, "Man, like, why do these people come up to you?" And I said, "Babe, this has been my life, my entire life. I've always been who I am. And because of that, people have always naturally gravitated to that authentic energy.
And
Good
I
word there,
think that
Tyrone.
I
I
think
like it.
that we all have that. I think that we all have that. It's just that some of us are not comfortable in allowing whatever that thing is that is uniquely us to be unlike anything that we've ever seen. You know,
Right.
it's like it's a thing with a lot of people to want to fit in with what they've seen, not understanding that if we accept and believe that each one of us are uniquely made, then that means there's going to be a whole untapped facet of you that has not been seen any place before, and the only time it shows up is when you arrive. That is it.
Mm,
And so allowing that to be exactly what it is, unapologetically, however that may be. Like I always say that shade has to be received. So I'm gonna say,
right.
oh, she threw shade at you. Says who? I didn't catch it. What does that mean? Embarrassment has to be something that you subscribe to. Embarrassment according to whose standard? That might be embarrassing for you, but you're not me. You know, so
Right.
different things like that, things that are so very subjective that we take, and because of what someone else's definition of something should say, they say it should be, we subscribe to that, and then now we're actually um we're actually dampening, if you will, or covering or escaping from what makes us authentically us. What people see as imperfections, I see as actually cute little quirks each and
Hmm.
every one of us have. It's only imperfect if you accept it as being that. Different is not imperfect by whose standard. And so I think
Right.
that when we decide to set our own standard for what is what when it comes to who we are authentically, that allows us to step away, to take the leash off if we have imaginary leashes on with what someone else says we should or shouldn't be or how things should or shouldn't look. I think when we allow ourselves to take those leashes off and to just be, and then
Right.
go more with, does this feel right for me? Screw anybody else. If it feels, and I'm not talking immoral stuff because some people go way to the left, to the left.
They
I'm
go
talking about
wild.
authentically who you are. If it feels right to you, then that's all that should matter. Anybody watching, if you want to join us here on stage with your questions and comments, by all means, come on down. Just follow that
Or
link. Yes, follow that link and join us right up here on stage. But I think
yeah.
that for so long, there are all these unwritten rules of life, stupid stuff like no white after Labor Day. Why?
Right.
It's a freaking color, like all the other colors. Why can't I wear it when I want to? Just stupid stuff. That people just take on and adapt because somebody else said that you should. And that's a silly example. It's one of the silliest ones that I could think of, and it has so many people running around with life passing them by because they're faking it. People, fake it till you make it. Nah, just be it and live free in it. I don't believe
Mm,
in fake it till you make it. For what? So I
yeah.
think that when we stop allowing ourselves to accept other people's perspectives or even their validation, because not all of it, some people are so busy looking for validation that they accept whatever is given, not understanding that just because it's given doesn't mean it's for you to accept. Maybe you should reject it sometime. Not all validation is good validation.
Right. There is toxic validation.
Let
That
me
is
tell you, not all validation is created equal. It's just not.
right.
And so that's, know thyself is so very important. And even if you say, well, I don't know myself yet, that's okay. Go with what you know. And if at some point in time it doesn't feel right, you can switch it up. We're evolutionary creatures. We're always switching up and discovering new things about ourselves. But this is what helps you to be able to connect to those influences that are going to be more substantial, that are actually going to help to enhance whatever your journey is in terms of development and refinement. The right influences can be just that. The wrong ones can do the complete and total opposite.
Right. So I want to bring in what Tyrone said is about this authentic energy. I forgot that people cannot see all the chats across all platforms. So Tyrone
Okay,
had,
I got that too.
Johnson had brought in authentic energy, and then he
Yeah.
says also a lot of people want that and they want to be a part of it. Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
and you know,
That light.
don't don't get me wrong on the mimicry aspect. I think there is a difference between mimicry and mentorship.
Yeah.
Some people don't know how to let's go old school. Some people don't know how to start a kerosene lantern. Some people don't know that. They don't know how to get that thing going.
That's what we doing tonight? Okay.
We going all the way back.
That's
However,
okay.
it doesn't mean that they can't learn how to start a kerosene lantern and begin to establish their own light and begin to establish their own presence. Um, a lot of times when I have walked in rooms, or especially when I have walked in rooms where I may have a friend who's a female and her partner is meeting me for the first time. A lot of times it was okay that Billy was like this friend who they didn't know, but then when they're in a room with me, it's sometimes they will feel like they are less than me. And it's not because I'm like, yeah, you less than me. I got all this going on. It's nothing about that. And I've learned to realize, because before I used to take it so personal, and I'll be like, what the heck? I didn't do anything. Why are they coming down on me? Like all these different things. And now I'm like, oh, that's not about me in regards to trying to belittle them. That's in regards to them seeing a light, and rather instead of saying, yo, I like that light and I wonder how I can duplicate that or connect with that in my own life, they say, oh, I see this light and I see how people in the room are illuminated by it. And I don't like that my light doesn't do that. When their
Well,
light absolutely could.
more specifically, I wonder if my woman is illuminated by it.
Oh yeah, that's
You
that's
is
true.
that part. What are you coming up in here bright like that for? I'll punch his light out. What is he doing? How
Right,
do you know him?
right.
Where do you know him from? Whole pee
Yeah,
on the territory thing.
true, 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 true. So my question is this to you then is about, because I put this in the chat, is how can influences confine spaces in our life? Like you talked very early about the pull away to the negative. In many cases, sometimes it's to the positive, but in many
Hmm.
cases
Hmm.
it's to the negative.
Yeah, to be the truth.
Um, how can that pull into the negative create confinement within our lives?
Well, if an influence is pulling anyone to a negative space, that space is not in alignment with who they are authentically. So if you take the ride, if you're pulled in that direction and for whatever reason you allow yourself to go, you're immediately pulling yourself off track because that's not in alignment with who you are. And so how can it confine a space? If you take the journey off track, then we all know that once you take that journey, there's no telling how long that's going to be.
Right,
So it could get you further away. Let's say that you were already on track, and let's say you prayed for what your next step is going to be in life. You have an opportunity in front of you that, of course, you don't know at the time. We never know at the time. But that opportunity is going to take you to that next space that you prayed for. So you can take a step either toward what you prayed for or to the left where the influence is pulling you. Well, if you take that step to the left, now you've pulled yourself away from what was going to take you toward what you prayed for. And then who knows what that journey is going to be. That space then can have you confined. It could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 2 years. And this is the reason why that authenticity piece and identity is so important. But I can't think of a subject that a topic that we haven't covered on this show from season one, even on up until currently, where everything that we've talked about can be tied directly back to identity. All of it, all of it, because identity and ego, I'll say, all of them. And that is because there are spaces, I believe, within our being when it comes to identity and when it comes to our ego, there are those fractured spaces from within that we all are working on trying to heal. Even for those of us who have connected dots and are comfortable and secure in who we are, there are still different things that are going to come up that are going to challenge different facets of yourself you have not yet applied to this particular situation. So then it could bring about some vulnerability. It could bring about some feelings that you thought were already resolved. And so then when we come to these different situations like influences that we're talking about, and that pull that could happen to a negative space, and that confinement that you ended up going down a road that you were not intended to be on because of different things that are going on with you, those all are directly connected to us still needing to connect to who we are authentically and our comfort in navigating that, even when we don't understand what all of who we are authentically means in a particular
Right.
situation. All that matters is that you're authentically you. And the longer you stay in it as you, the more of a chance you have of figuring this thing out. And let's say that when you figure it out, the outcome isn't favorable, it's still going to be a very important piece of what you're going to need moving forward and other things that you're going to encounter. Because one thing you're never going to change is, or one thing that's never going to change is who you are authentically. That's always going to be there. That person is being built irregardless as to what outcomes may be in different situations. So yeah, I think that it's easy to have those different spaces that end up confining us and that we end up having to claw our way out of when we allow ourselves to be pulled towards something that anytime it's pulled away and it's negative, it's not in alignment with us. And the best way to get back on track from that is to take that step back into what feels like a more natural fit for you and navigate it from there.
Hmm. When you were talking about that pool pulling you off track, I immediately seen a cargo train, thinking about when a train derails and
Yes.
thinking about all the things that we may carry with us that are a part of our identity. If we look at those things being carried on our own personal cargo train and we derail it, oh, there's a massive cleanup that has to take place.
Talk
And
about
some
it.
of the stuff that is a part of our identity becomes so damaged that we can't use it anymore. Like to take from Tyrone what he said, the healing spaces. We we've damaged it so much that we either cannot use it or we have to go into those healing spaces to
Yeah.
repair it, to recover, to reestablish it in our lives. Also, the other thing about trains is that because they follow a track that's laid out, um, if one was off track, and let's say it wasn't derailed, but it was just off track in the middle of the street, it would stand out. It would be
Yeah.
out of place. And I think about our our own influence. I guess even again growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in, where some kids were smoking weed before we were even probably 13 years old, and I just wasn't that kid. And so it would almost be like me going into those environments like, oh well, I'm going to be a weed smoker. I stand out, Billy. You're a train amongst cars right now. Uh,
Mhm.
they know that you're not a weed smoker, and so why even put on the facade of being something that we are not? And so one of the things when you had said earlier about always having to follow that blueprint, why follow the blueprint when we can truly be the architect?
Talk about it.
We have a blank canvas at our disposal. Our lives are, I mean, I believe in divine purpose, but our lives are a blank canvas to that.
Yep.
We don't, we are not obligated to go down any specific path. We choose every single path that we go through, and that goes back to the show we were talking about manifestation. We
Yep.
manifest positive and negatives in our life. And so, if that's the case, why am I constantly trying to find a blueprint to tell me who I need to be? What I need to look for is a pencil so I can draft it out and then erase some things when I make some mistakes because I'm going to make some mistakes.
Listen, the thought being, uh, the way I'm looking at life these days is I'm not looking for any pathways where there's just all different types of footprints along them. I want to deviate from all those paths and make my own trail. Somebody can follow mine. You can learn something from
Right.
me. But I'm, and I think that that takes a certain amount of courage and trust in oneself, because you're not having courage for anybody else. You're not seeking what someone else has to offer. You're just following a voice from within. And I think that if we're not used to listening to our voice from within, then it's hard to trust it. It's hard to trust something that you really haven't taken the time to connect to and bank on. It's very similar to people who aspire when people say blanket statements like, you have to have a relationship with God. Like, well, okay, I can't kiss him. I can't, all of the stuff we do for relationships. So we can't get down like that.
Right.
Y'all don't pay no attention to me. I'm not talking about screwing God. Let's just be clear about that. That's not what I'm
Because
saying.
you know somebody take it.
Did she just
Like
say
Taylor was talking about.
that? Not at all. But what I'm saying is, I liken it to when we hear about having a relationship with God, right? And spending time in the Word and allowing that word to connect with who you are is what creates a connection as to where when you read it, you can hear, you can feel, you can pick up different things that are relevant to you and for you, but you'd have to spend time there. That voice isn't just going to come if you're not investing time and investing yourself and with the intention, with the sole intention on making that connection, then you're not going to hear it. And if you did hear it, you wouldn't know whether or not to trust it. It was the same thing with ourselves. When we're in those spaces of introspection, we're taking time in a space that is uncomfortable, where we don't know what to expect. A lot of what we hear, which is the reason why we run from silence and stillness, a lot of stuff we hear, we don't want to hear because we don't like it, you know. But after you get beyond the space of being uncomfortable, of not liking what it is that you're sitting in the space receiving, then those things calm and quiet. It all comes to the surface, and then it all calms and quiets. And then now you have a space that not only are you accustomed to and you're growing comfortable with, but you start to learn how much power you have within that space because you can really hear and feel yourself and hear and feel when God is present with you. So once you spend enough time there, you get used to that atmosphere, you get used to that voice, you get used to that experience from within. So then if you're going into a room where you're up against, because they do the weird crap they've been doing for the last few years now, you don't do a lot of solo interviews. They have you in there with 15 other freaking people at the same time, that kind of crap. When you're in a situation like that, right? When you're in a situation like that, if you spent time becoming accustomed to what that voice from within says and how that connection feels, then you know what you can trust. You know, when you hear things, what this means, how to process it, how to move. But a lot of us don't spend enough time alone with ourselves like that, to get to know ourselves like that. Just like we don't spend enough time from a spiritual context. Some of us, we don't spend that type of time with God to get to know his voice. It's just an extension of who we are. So I think it's so very important to welcome those spaces and welcome the discomfort. Earlier, when we talked about some of the most, when we were talking about, well, I mentioned Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. When we think of anybody successful, it could be in music, wherever. Choose anybody that you want. These people have spent a whole lot of time, Michael and Kobe, with just them and that ball. Other people was out drinking and getting strippers. And they was someplace just them and that ball, them and that ball. When people talk about Beyonce, I just heard a recording the other night. I forgot who the young lady was, but she was talking about when they were having celebratory parties for something that the group had accomplished. Beyonce was in the car when it was raining hard, listening to a track, writing to it. Everybody else is celebrating. They talk about her work ethic. That time alone with whatever your thing is, and if you don't know what that thing is, spending some time alone with yourself to get to know your own voice and start to trust what that is, it's invaluable. I think it's life changing.
Absolutely, I agree. I put a question here to the chat. Do you really know who you are? Um, Tyrone says, to be honest, I just found out who I truly was at age 42. And then he also agreed with you and said, yeah, those people are determined people. Um, that it's funny because I asked that question and then I asked myself that question, and I come up with an answer that I do know who I am right now. I don't know who I'll be later. I assume that it'll be a good person and a quality person because of who I am now and who I know I'm striving to be.
Hmm.
Um, but that question is not static. The answer to that question is not static. It's very
It
dynamic.
can't be. Not yeah, not if you're if anything that's alive is growing at all
Yes.
times, every day, every
Yeah.
moment of every day.
Yeah. I was thinking about an experience that I had where, I mean, I thought I was somebody. I thought I was doing some of the right things, was still doing some of the wrong things. But going through that experience taught me who I was in that moment. Um, Taught me that when I say, being a father is important to me, that is not just me saying, oh, this sounds good. I think ladies will like this if I tell them being a father is important to me. No, it's like, no, really, fatherhood is very important to me. And doing the things that um, I need to do to be an effective father in all of my children's life is extremely important to me. To the extent of, unfortunately, I was talking to somebody today. I was like, with children, I think the biggest thing that they unlock in an active parent's mind is our ability to adapt.
Oh yeah.
And when I started thinking about that in relation to this topic of influences that we have, sometimes those influences are not like you said, pulling us to anything. They are really pushing us. The level of maturity that I have and am still trying to grow into, because I don't have all of it, but the level of maturity that I have today, I truly believe my children were a major component in pushing me to that level of maturity, because I immediately realized that, hey, none of these kids can take care of themselves. So you have to figure out how to be a provider financially. You have to figure out how to be an emotional provider. You have to be able to figure out how to inspire and motivate your children to want the best for themselves. And it just taught me that time and time again, when I would try something and it was wrong, and I tried something and it worked a little bit and then it didn't work the next time. I was constantly in this state of flux and adaptation,
Yeah.
adapting to who I needed to become in the moment. So when you say all things that are living are constantly in a state of growth, we are constantly fluctuating, and children will push that to the very limit of who you want or how you want to fluctuate. But we're constantly fluctuating in who we are. So when I think about, do I really know who I am? Yes, I do know who I am, but I know who I am in this moment. And in the next fluctuation or next adaptation or evolution of who I am becoming, I'll be just as excited to learn who that person is as well.
Oh yeah, and that's the gift that keeps on giving. That's the many facets that we talk about. The thing that's interesting to me is how you have those who, you know, they feel as though they've reached their pinnacle because they're completely and totally comfortable with who they are. That's always going to be challenged because you're comfortable with that facet. You're
Right.
comfortable with it, you're flowing with it, and you know it. But if we accept that we're supposed to be these dynamic beings as God describes, there's not just that one thing. Maybe you have mastery in that one area. So you have to know that the curveball is coming. There's going to be
Right.
another area of growth that is necessary for you to try to get as close to this multifaceted being of service with that beacon of light that you described. For those of us who allow ourselves to just be, we become influencers to people on the outside of us. And not saying that that's the goal. For some people, the goal is to be an influencer. I don't think that anyone needs to make that a goal. I really don't. I think that if you just be who you are, there are going to be people who are influenced by what it is that you do in a positive way. They're going to glean from it whatever they can to add to their journey, and they're going to go ahead and do the same. I think all of us are designated a tribe of people that we're meant to serve, because I feel like we're all meant to serve in our own unique way. So just
Absolutely.
the just learning to be. is, I think, the most valuable thing that each and every one of us could do.
Yeah, no, no, learning to just not just exist, but truly live, like I said, in um, that divine blueprint that we are building. Truly live in that space, to
Yeah.
where you can truly create your service to the world. Because I mean, I forget which quote it was in the book that in the book, but it was talking about how we are basically placed in this earth to connect and empower one another.
Hmm.
And if we lose sight of that, we have truly lost sight of our purpose in
Yeah.
this life. I think about even what we do on Tuesdays. That our weeks have been back to back, crazy, up and down, everywhere. Hurricane, tornado, anything you could think that's destructive. That has been our weeks the past couple of weeks. But
Yeah.
the blueprint and the design of reaching out and being a light and having these, what I would consider higher level conversations, even when people are not coming on to have them with us. But having these higher level conversations is just, it's a part of the purpose in which I believe both of us were intimately designed for.
Absolutely. You know how our audience does. They're gonna wait till like the last 6 episodes of the season. Now everybody want to come on, talk about where y'all going. Where were you?
Right. We out.
7
The
episodes.
season's
Right. What are you
over.
doing? Right. What are you doing? They do it all the time. Absolutely. I think so. And I think that one thing I love about our audience and I love about this show is these conversations are the conversations that a lot of us live with in different ways every day. If it's not us as individuals, we know someone who has their struggle or their challenges with different things like this. And I don't think that there are many platforms to talk about many different things, but I think our own special way in which we talk about some of these personal things that people navigate every day, I think that that's the draw. I think that's what makes it something that's fruitful to people who happen to catch us live or even catch the replay or wait to the end of the season to come up and talk on
Right.
stage with these things.
True, true. Well, we are almost, man, I swear an hour of time talking goes by so fast
It
when
does.
we are
It
having
does.
these conversations. But we are almost at time. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to give the first closing thought. I'll give a closing thought. And then we have a playbook that we're going to go into that you're going to
Oh,
run.
so we're gonna do the closing thought first and then the playbook. Okay.
Yeah, I like change it up, change it
I see, because I'm like, hold on a second, homie. Didn't you do it different last week?
up. I did.
Okay. I would say closing thought for me is I love how Tyrone he set it up in 2 words, authentic energy. Just embracing that authentic energy, and I would just define that as what feels natural and normal for you. You don't even have to think about it. Just even if I feel stupid, I feel good in this space.
Hmm.
That's me. I think that just tapping into our authentic energy and having the audacity to just be and go on the journey to discover what that's going to become, because it's going to become something amazing because we're one of one.
Mm. I like where you went with that, and I actually, the discover part is my closing thought. Is don't be afraid to discover you.
Mm.
Like you said, even when you feel goofy, when you feel like, this is completely embarrassing, don't be afraid to discover you. You might find that you like that person. Part of my journey to living in Utah required that I liked who I am, not, well, who I was in the moment and who I am today. I
Right.
had to like me in order to move to a place where it would only be me. And I wouldn't have a lot of that white noise to create distractions on people liking me because I grew up here and we have a relationship. No, I had to establish new relationships. Now I kept a lot of my old relationships, don't get that wrong, but
Hmm.
don't be afraid to discover yourself. Don't be afraid to discover you. Because once you discover you, the influences have a lot less impact into the types of decisions you make, into the type of situations you find yourself in. all of a sudden you might have somebody who comes into your life thinking they're going to be the influencer and they actually become the influencee. I have in this year, my word for the year has been thriving. That is the word for 2022 for me. Everything that I'm doing, I plan to thrive. And not only do I plan to thrive, I plan for the people that are in my tribe and in my close immediate circle to thrive as well. And so it doesn't surprise me when I have friends who are getting acknowledged as top realtors in the markets that they work in, friends who are getting acknowledged in promotions at their jobs. It doesn't surprise me because that is the influence that I choose to emit out, but I also choose to accept within. So that's what I got for my closing thoughts. We do have, do you want to bring in those last comments in the chat before we go to
Yeah,
playbook?
why not? Yeah. Let's do that. We
All
have
right. Oh, wait, sorry, I went back the wrong way. I'm still going back the wrong way. Tyrone Johnson says, continue to grow every day. Absolutely. Growth is key. And if you're living, you should be growing. Also, good topics and conversation. Thank you. We appreciate it. We try to have these deeper level conversations, and it's always wonderful when people engage, even if they're just engaging in the chat. And then
yes.
Paul Thompson says, thank you guys. I enjoyed listening in on the conversation. We appreciate you listening in.
Thanks, Paul.
Tyrone Johnson, enjoyed it. Keep up the good work. Be blessed. Absolutely. And
Indeed.
casual economist.
Come on
Great
through.
show like always. Coming through. I appreciate you coming through, man. You're probably sitting at work listening to us, but we appreciate you coming through. All
Absolutely.
right. With
All
that,
right.
take it away.
So now to the coach's playbook. Tool number one is going to be spend more time with yourself. This is so very important. There's so much noise, the hustle and bustle, all the different cutesy memes and stuff that we see, the different video clips. There's so much going on. And then aside from stuff with social media, just family, just work, all of the different relationships, all of that's well and good. But none of those things can be at their optimal best within your life unless you are where you need to be optimally. So that time with ourselves helps for us to clear out all of that noise and really stay centered to the voice within so that we can trust ourselves first and foremost in everything that we do above anyone else. Number two is stop looking for the blueprint. I love this one. There is no blueprint to being one of one. There's no blueprint to you. It's up to us to create that thing. And listen, there are many different blueprints that have been made. Talk to some architects for many different things, and they don't just start off and write out this blueprint and it's perfect. They start off and there are different stages to the creation of this thing that they're going to build, where our lives and our journeys are very much the same way. Allow yourself to map out a course, go down it. I don't like all of it. Maybe I tweak this, tweak that. That's what life is about. Life is about exploration and finding out exactly what's going to be the best fit for you. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be immediate, and it doesn't have to be right away. And I'd also add to this, a lot of us look over the fence at what other people are doing or look at people's lives externally and think that their blueprint was just put together like that. For everything you see that's finished and admirable to you, understand that there was some reconfigurations going on behind the scenes for you to be able to see what it is that you admire. So allow yourself to do the same type of work behind the scenes from within on your own journey. And then finally, last tool is going to be trust in the merit of your courage. Listen, I'm going to trust me, even if I fall short over somebody else who don't even know me like I know me.
Right.
So at the end of the day, if there's a chance for me to fail, at least I'm failing based on my decision and not someone else's who really don't even know me. Always, always, always put all your chips on the table for you. Don't take and put your chips on the table and slide them to the person next to you. Makes no sense. Bank on you all the time. And even when you lose, you'll win. So that's it for the coach's playbook. I like those. I like that. I can get behind all of that.
Yes, yes. All right, take us home.
All right, then. So, hey, y'all know every Tuesday to get us here. But guess what? Do you know that tomorrow the Wednesday word is humming coming at you. Yeah, that's the case. That is going to be 6:30 Pacific. That's 9:30. Wait a minute, Eastern. Yes. Okay. Don't laugh at me. But the Wednesday word, listen, one of the things that I love most about the Wednesday word is not only is it a nice segue from what we do on Tuesdays, but there's so much. I mean, over 200 videos. You got to get your whole entire life and check out that Wednesday word every Wednesday. So if you want some more Billy, catch him tomorrow. But fret not, there's still more to come. Me and my podcast, The Grind Defined. I'm coming at you live every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are on season 3 and things are going swimmingly well. Check us out and get your fix to round out the week and take you into the weekend before you catch up with us again on every Tuesday through the end of this year. Listen, y'all not going to keep waiting until the end of the season to come up here and chat with me and Billy. We're going to require for you guys to come up and have some conversation. So yeah, that's how you get with us. And also, I don't know, I don't see it just yet, but we're about to fire your job, hire your passion. Listen, national bestseller, first time out the gate. So proud of Billy for this. If you have not gotten a taste of this substantial work, what are you waiting for? If you go to firstrow.com, the first chapter is complimentary. Y'all, there's a journal. And I ain't talking about put no stars and put little hearts in there and some frilly tilly stuff. I'm talking about if you think that what you get on this show is some meat, you have got to check out the book and the journal. Get that first chapter of the book. I guarantee you're going to want to get the journal. I want you to be a part of conversations, discussions that are going to be going on around this work very, very soon. So that is it for tonight. Want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time, peace and abundant blessings.
Peace.